Good evening, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started here. I'm Melanie Corrin. I'm the president of Columbus College of Art and Design, and I'm excited to welcome you here tonight to our event. We here for the keynote of the Cartoon Crossroads Columbus have with us a really exciting conversation ahead. I'm thrilled to welcome mangaka Keito Gaku along with queer comics icon Justin Hall. Together, we will explore the world of manga and gain insight into the creative process of a truly incredible artist. CCAD's roots with CXC are deep, and it's our privilege to host cartoon enthusiasts like you every year for this event. Our faculty, students, and alumni have played important parts in CXC since the festival's inception, and this year is no different. I'd like to extend thanks to our faculty members who were involved in planning this event and spearheading the programming. I'd also like to extend our sincere thanks to CXC's Executive Director, Jay Kalagayan, and all of those who help make this festival a success. This event is also part of CCAD's Visiting Artists and Scholar Lecture Series, and we are incredibly thankful for our sponsors who allow us to bring innovative artists, designers, and thinkers to the college and regularly host events like this that are free and open to the public. Much thanks to the Greater Columbus Arts Council, Ohio Arts Council, and the Skestos Endowed Fund for visiting artists and lecturers. In addition, I'd also like to thank for tonight, Kodansha Pop Culture Studies at Ohio State University and Japan Foundation New York for making this visit possible. If you enjoyed tonight's conversation, I'd encourage you to follow CCAD on social media at CCAD.edu to stay up to date with our public programming throughout the year, which will include additional artist talks, gallery exhibitions, art fairs, and more. And finally, I'd like to provide a friendly but firm reminder that to respect our guests' wish for privacy, there will be no photos or videos allowed at tonight's event. And for those interested, book signings will take place tomorrow at CXC. And now I'm thrilled to welcome CCAD's Chair of Comics and Narrative Practice, Lauren McCubbin, to the stage to introduce our guests. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I am so happy to welcome so many of you to this event. It's a very, very special occasion tonight. It's not very often that we get to invite a Japanese mangaka to Ohio, which is also kind of funny because in Japanese, Ohio means good morning. So every time we're explaining, no, you're in Ohio, they're wondering why we are continually telling them good morning. So I am incredibly proud and happy to introduce our main guest tonight, Keito Gaku, along with Justin Hall and Keito Gaku's editor and also their interpreter. So I'm going to give you a little bit of info about everybody. Justin Hall is a cartoonist, educator, and scholar. He edited the Lambda Award-winning and Eisner-nominated collection No Straight Lines, 4 Decades of Queer Comics, and he was the producer of the feature-length documentary film of the same name, now streaming on Apple TV. Hall is the chair of the MFA in Comics program at California College of the Art and the first Fulbright Scholar in Comics. I know, fancy, right? And now a little bit about Keito Gaku's editor. Hidemi Sharaki joined Kodansha in 2014 and has been on the Young Magazine editorial team for 9 years. And now, Keito Gaku, our artist, is a manga artist and transgender man living in Tokyo, Japan. At age 22, Gaku-sensei was awarded the 77th Tetsuya Chiba Prize for his debut one-shot work, Light, which was later adapted into Boys Run the Riot. Boys Run the Riot is his debut manga series and first work to be published in English. So please welcome them, joined by their interpreter, Noriko Rogers.
Hello, everyone. People can hear me? All right. All ready to get a little bit queer, a little bit geeky? Thank you so much for having us. This is an incredible honor. Thank you to Cartoon Crossroads, to CCAD, and to Gaku Sensei and the whole Kodansha crowd. So it's been really quite an honor to be here. And we're here to celebrate the production of this amazing series, Boys Run the Riot, and the other works also of Gaku Sensei, Aobo no Basket and Light. So I wanted to to start this off with that Gaku Sensei, this is the first time you've been to the United States, right? So what do you think? Is that a loaded question?
すいません。
Sorry about that.
初めてアメリカに来たんですけど、僕にとって初めてのアメリカがこのオハイオ州なので、すごい自然豊かで過ごしやすい国だなと思ってます。
Yes, to answer your question, this is my first time being in the US, and of all the places that I could be in the US, I am in the state of Ohio for the very first time as well. And I am delighted to see so much nature in the state.
You also had your first burrito, I believe. Did you finish your first burrito?
ブリトーは、なんでそんなに笑われてるのかわからないんですけど
I'm not sure why this is so funny to you.
ブリトーは日本でもよく好んで食べてたんですけど、アメリカのブリトーはちょっとあまりにも大きくてすごいびっくりしてます。
I have actually had burrito in Japan, to tell you the truth. But the burrito that I had in the US, wow, it was gigantic. And I am in shock.
It's called the food log here, so yes. So yeah, the United States is an interesting place in many ways. One of the things is that the US loves manga. So Japanese comics outsells American comics in America by quite a lot, actually. And this is, I think, opened a door for publishing houses like Kodansha to be able to bring in more mature work, stuff with thematic resonance and narrative complexity that goes beyond the standard shonen manga series that we've seen before. And Boys Run the Riot definitely reflects that. It's the story of Ryo, a young trans man making his way through high school as he's starting a fashion brand with a small group of friends who are other sort of outcasts from society. So Shiraki-san, as you're the editor of the series, and I wanted to ask you, can you tell us how this work came to be published and how was it received in Japan? And then why did Kodansha decide to translate this for an English language market?
そうですね。日本で初めて出した時はまだ、こういったジェンダーを扱った作品というのはまだかなり少なくって、そこにガク先生がチャレンジングな作品を持ってきてくださったことで、そうですね。少し漫画を通してこういう、世界を広げるものというのが出てきたのが大きく変わったんじゃないかなと個人的に思っています。
Yes, when we first published the work in Japan, there are very few works written on the theme of gender in Japan. And, Gaku Sensei here sort of challenged that situation by bringing his work into the picture. And through the medium of manga, I believe that we're able to expand that realm of manga in general. So that's what I would say about that.
Yeah, thank you. Now, the translation and English language localization of this work is excellent. I mean, I think Kodansha did a fantastic job. It was an all-trans team that did the English localization, putting the trans back into translation. That's my only dad joke of the evening, so yeah, just, you're welcome. And it was led by TJ Ferrantini, who's here in the audience, and included extra interviews with Gaku Sensei, as well as a glossary of terms about Japanese culture and gender identities it's incredibly helpful for an average reader. So I just wanted to kind of give that shout out. Now, one of the things that I find really fascinating about the Japanese market that's very different from the American market is that the relationship between editors and creators. So I was wondering if the two of you could talk about what that relationship is like in Japan and how the two of you collaborated on the two series that you've worked on together, which is Boys Run the Riot and also Aoba no Basket, which is a high school basketball story. So maybe either of you want to start, and I'd love to hear.
Eh そうですね。日本の、漫画産業においては、多分、ほとんど多くの作品が、漫画家一人ではなくて、担当編集という形で、エディターが、マンツーマンで、一緒に相談して、制作に、一緒に漫画を制作していくという形をとっています。で、そうですね、ボーイズ・ラン・ザ・ライオットに関しても、連載作品になる、連載作品を立ち上げる、以前から1年とかですかね、連載。
1年ぐらいですね。
1年間ぐらいはその連載の会議に通すために2人で、作品の打ち合わせをして、そこから枠を勝ち取って、やっと、連載を一緒に2人で進めていくことができるというような形になります。
Well, let's see. Just to touch on how, the Japanese manga industry works, it's pretty typical, I would say, on many of the manga works for not just a single manga artist to work on their own, but they would usually have an editor in charge. So typically, these two individuals work hand in hand and have pretty close collaboration and discussions throughout the process. And Boys Run the Riot is not an exception in this sense, in that even before it was serialized, I would say for about a year, the two of us worked together, and we closely collaborated through having discussions on the work. And finally, we were able to serialize it at the end.
And this is true for Aoba no Basket as well.
そうですね、連載に至る過程で、担当編集と2人で打ち合わせを重ねて、連載枠を、取っていくというところにおいては一緒なんですけど、青葉のバスケは、白木さんではなくて別の担当編集の方と一緒に、制作しています。
In a sense that, yes, we went through the same process as far as collaborating together between the manga artist and the editor up to the point of serialization. Yes, I would say it's the same. But the only thing to note about Aoba no Basket is that I'm not working with Shiraki-san here. I'm working with a different editor.
Okay, yeah. And we won't talk anything bad about that editor. Well, they're not here to defend themselves. Okay. So the pace of production of manga is blistering. I think it's worthwhile telling American audiences how many pages you do a week, because it's sort of shocking. So I'm wondering about production on Boys Run the Riot and then on Aoba no Basket. Did you have assistants? How many pages a week did you have to produce for serialization?
そうですね、ボーイズ・ラン・ザ・ライオットに関しては、1週間に、18ページという決まった枚数を、制作することになっていて、で、青葉のバスケの方に関しては、2週間に、1回、18ページからだいたい25ページぐらい。こちらはウェブが中心の連載なので、ページが少し可変性があるというか、多少増減できることが多いので、そちらはそのぐらいのページ数の中で2週間に1回制作しています。で、アシスタントに関しては、ボーイズ・ラン・ザ・ライオットも青葉のバスケも、3人、一緒に手伝ってやってもらってます。
Thank you for your question. On Boys Run the Riot, I had a mandate to create 18 pages a week. And for Albano Basket, I would create somewhere between 18 and 25 pages on a bi-weekly basis, though. But
Slacker.
because Albano Basket is basically online, the number of pages can fluctuate, so it can go up or down. As far as the assistants, I have about 3 assistants on both Boys Run the Riot and Albano Basket.
And what do the assistants do? How does that work? Also, I think you just almost gave a heart attack to everybody in the room by saying 18 pages a week. I'm just saying.
そうですね、週間で18ページっていうのは僕もやめた方がいいなって思ってるんですけどそうですね、アシスタントのお仕事についてはそうだな、基本的に漫画の、キャラクター以外の背景の絵のところを全てお願いしていて、僕が大体の、写真だとか、3D モデルを使ったり、あとは、ちょっとラフスケッチだったりとか、そういうこういうふうにしてくださいっていう資料と、指示を用意して、その背景を制作していただくのと、あとは、スクリーントーン貼るだったりとか、漫画の仕上げの部分を、1名にお願いしています。
First of all, I have to say that I don't recommend working on 80 pages on a weekly basis.
Okay.
As far as what I ask my assistants to do, it's basically work other than the characters in the manga. So, for example, backgrounds, I would ask my assistants to work on them. So, for example, I would say provide pictures or 3D models, even rough sketches to my assistants. So I would provide that type of materials as well as supplementary instructions to my assistants so that they can proceed with their work. And of course, when it comes to applying screen tones, that's another thing that I would ask my assistants to work on, and any final touch-ups.
Thank you. So how did you come up with the name Boys Run the Riot? It's really an incredibly evocative phrase in English. And I believe the English was actually used in the Japanese publication as well. So where did that come from?
Can そうですね、漫画のそうですね、タイトルに関しては、まずこの作品の、がどういった内容かを、最初に説明する部分だと思うので、日本語版のカバーは、英語版のものとは違って、スカート姿の主人公が一人立っている絵なので、そのスカート姿の主人公と、あとそのボーイズっていうそのスカート姿で、一見こう女性に見える主人公がいるところにボーイズっていう、男性を表す単語を配置するっていうところをまず決めて、それからそのボーイズをよりこう、この作品の内容を、説明するのに合った言葉を、白木さんと2人でいろいろと候補を出しながら探していて、その中で、ライオットっていう言葉が2人の中で一致して、そのボーイズとライオットを、意味としてつなげられるように一つのタイトルにしたという感じです。はい。
Well, let's see. We figured that the title of the manga should sort of describe what the work is all about. And to tell the truth, the Japanese edition cover is different from the English publication cover. And for the Japanese version, the cover shows a woman, a female-looking individual in a skirt, and she's standing there by herself. So she's the protagonist, but there is also the word boys describing the masculinity or some concept of a male individual or individuals. So we decided to lay the word boys where the concept of boys would be described. So I don't know if that makes sense, but so we figured, both of us, Shiraki-san and I, that the title should convey and describe what the work is all about. And we discussed, multiple times. And after all that process, we decided and agreed on the word riot. And that's how we came up with the title.
Yeah, thank you. So Boys Run the Riot seems to have this really strong message to it, one that can really inspire readers. And I'm wondering if you kept that sort of message in mind while you were making the manga, or do you create your story just thinking about the story authentically and not worrying about how it's received by the readers?
そうですね、ボーイズ・ラン・ザ・ライオットに関しては、そうですね、主人公の造形というか、抱えてきたストーリーみたいなものは、僕に近いものがあるので、そうですね、そこら辺は、そうだな、リアルに近い描写が必要な部分では、よりやっぱり僕にしかわからない気持ちだったりとか、実際に体験した物事だとか、真実に近い、ことを用いたりすることはあるんですけど、それは漫画の作品の一部分であって、でやっぱりそのテーマが軸にあって、それを伝えるためにいろんなことが存在していると思うので、一番には、特別自分から何か受け取ってほしいという押し付けみたいなことではないんですけど、自分が一番伝えたいメッセージみたいなところが軸にあって、それを伝える手段のために、僕の持ってる事実だとか、リアルに近い体験みたいなものがあるというイメージですね。
Let's see. So for Boys Run the Riot, the story that the protagonist offers is very close to myself. And I figure that the depiction of that should be as real as possible. And of course, that includes feelings, emotions, experiences that are unique to myself that I only own. And I think in a sense, I can say that those elements are authentic and truthful because I went through them. But this is only one part of the entire picture. And I believe that the theme should be central as far as how the story unfolds. And I sort of see this as the theme being the central figure, and there are surrounding elements around it. So I'm not really trying to, push anything on the audience or readers, but there is definitely a message that I'm trying to convey, which acts as the central axis of the work. And to get that across, I'm using the facts, the real experiences that I own as the means, the vehicle to get that across.
Can I ask why? I mean, there's a lot of, especially in the United States now, there's a lot of memoir work being made And why did you decide to do a fictional story and not a memoir about your own experiences?
そうですね。まあ、そうですね。やっぱり、どうなんだろうな。ちょっと、まあ、日本では、そうですね。まあ、漫画、特に、この、日本でも漫画は、いろいろとこう自己表現の一つだったりとか、こう同人誌的なこうファンアートの文化もすごく発達していると思うんですけど、ボーイズ・ラン・ザ・ライオットに関しては、一番に、商品だと思うので、やっぱりこう僕自身の、気持ちの吐露だとか、表現、自分が伝えたいことの表現というよりかも、それも必要ではあるんですけど、やっぱりこう目指しているのは多くの人に面白いと思ってもらえるとか手に取ってもらえるものであることは間違いないので、そのためにはこう読み手を意識した作品作りだったりとか、そうですね、多少、こうなんだろう、まあフィクションであってもこう何かこう面白いと伝えられる方法を取り入れたりとかっていうのは、必要だと思ってます。はい。
Let's see, to answer your question, in Japan, I would say that, manga particularly, has a lot to do with self-expression as well as, art itself. And I believe that this area is quite advanced in Japan. With Boys Run the Riot, I think the first priority, at least for me, is that it needs to be a viable product. And of course, I have all the feelings, all the expressions that I want to, work into it. And of course, those elements are necessary. But what I'm aiming for, what I'm targeting, is for as many people as possible to pick up the work and find it enjoyable. And to do that, of course, I need to sort of keep the readers in mind when I create the works. And even though my story is fictional, I also need to keep in mind, a method or a way to make it entertaining for that purpose.
There's a term in the States that we use a lot in queer communities called found family. And it's the idea that since so many of us queer people have been rejected by our biological families, we oftentimes turn to our community to find family bonds and that sort of support. And reading Boys Run the Riot, it really felt a lot like the commentary on found family. Like this was this group of students that were trying to find this sort of bond and support with each other. But it actually goes beyond just the queer characters, because these characters right here, this is Jin and the photographer, who are both not queer, but they still are part of this community that's developed around Rio, the main character, and they've bonded as a family of outcasts. So I was wondering if that concept of found family resonates for you, and if that's something that you were getting at.
そうですね。ファウンドファミリーっていう言葉に関しては、なんだろう、そこまでやっぱり、LGBTQ に対しての理解が進んでない日本では僕はまだ聞いたことがなくて、初めて知ったんですけど、すごくいい考え方だなと思っていて、でもそうですね、そのボーイズ・ラン・ザ・ライオットの中で、このキャラクターたちがその表現していることはまさにそれだなと僕も思っていて、 で、ストーリーの中で、主人公たちがこう、ファッションブランドをこう立ち上げていくという物語の中で、そのブランドのコンセプトを探すっていうストーリーがあるんですけど、その中で、彼らは彼らは、トランスジェンダーであるリョウがその自分の悩みを打ち明けたところから集まったチームではあるんですけど、ブランドのコンセプトを考えていくにあたって、自分たちがそのものを届けたいのは LGBTQ の、人たちだけではないというふうに、自分たちで気づいて、だけどもその例えばジンだったりとかが、寮の、そのカミングアウトだったりとか、寮の持つアート表現に感動したように、その、自分のアイデンティティとかその苦しみみたいなもの、悩みみたいなものを乗り越えてこう何か表現していくということに対しては、それがジェンダーの悩みではなくても人は感動できるんじゃないかということに作品の中で、そのキャラクターたちは気づいていくんですけど、で彼ら自身のブランドのコンセプトを、生きづらさへの反抗みたいな風に定義するんですけど、僕はその彼らが見つけたものっていうのがまさにそのファウンドファミリーの考え方に、すごく近しいんじゃないかなと思ってます。
Because LGBTQ movement is not as far ahead in Japan, I had actually never heard of the concept or the term found family before, and it was my first time learning it. And I think it's very positive as a concept. And, I do believe that that is precisely what the characters in Boys Run the Riot are trying to articulate through the work. And as part of this story, the protagonists or the characters launch a fashion brand together. And there is a part in it where they are trying to figure out their brand concept. And of course, the transgender character, Ryo, basically confides in his allies and tells them, gradually starts to tell them about what he's struggling with. And they put their heads together to figure out the brand concept together. But they also learn through this whole process that it's not just the LGBTQ community individuals that they want to target, but they also want to reach out to beyond that community to basically deliver what they can through the fashion brand. And, I think just as Jin was genuinely moved by, Ryo's expression of him coming out, and as well as his artistic ability and expressions, I believe that, expressing something by overcoming identity-related issues or, anguish that is related to that, it doesn't have to be just about gender and issues surrounding gender. And, other things can be just as moving. That's what they eventually find out through this work. And I do believe that, at the end of the day, what they found was, basically what found family is all about.
Thank you. Yeah. And finding it through the use of fashion as a concept and graffiti art as well, which is really remarkable. I also wanted to ask about the relationship of sexuality to gender and Boys Run the Riot. There is a sort of oftentimes an assumption that if Ryo is a man that he should be attracted to women, but he's challenged in that by Tsubasa, who is ex-gender but presents oftentimes with androgynous and female imagery, and so it's expected that they are attracted to men. But that both of those things get sort of thrown into question. So I'm wondering how you see the role of sexuality in Boys Run the Riot as opposed to gender or in relationship to gender.
Ah, そうですね。それについては、りょうっていうトランスジェンダーの主人公は、やっぱり主人公なのでどうしても物語のほとんどが彼の視点で進んでいってしまうところがあるので、おっしゃっていただいたようにまさにりょう自身が結構自分が男性だったら女性を好きじゃなきゃいけないとか、自分が女性だったら男性を好きじゃなきゃいけないとか、そういう異性でなければ恋愛してはいけないというような考えにとらわれていて、で物語の序盤はやはりほとんどが彼の視点で進んでいってしまうので、そこに対して、翼という人物を、僕は必ず登場させたくて、それは翼も同じように、亮と同じでジェンダーの悩みを抱える人物なんですけど、翼の物語があることによって、アイデンティティと性的指向には、関係がなくて、それは、移り変わるものであるということを、表現することができたと僕は考えています。
Thank you for your question. Because Ryo is a transgender main character, and because he is a main character, inevitably the first bit of the story proceeds and unfolds almost strictly through his lens. And because Ryo himself sort of is trapped by this preconceived idea that if you're a man, you're automatically supposed to be attracted to women, and vice versa, and because of that viewpoint being central to the story in the beginning of the story, I really wanted to have Tsubasa in the work as a character. And by having Tsubasa, and Tsubasa similarly having gender-related issues to Ryo, now I believe I was able to get across the message that, in fact, sexual orientation and identity do not have to go hand in hand. And I think I was able to get that across by having Tsubasa in the story.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Another thing I wanted to just point out is how beautiful your drawings are. I want to draw like that. It's so gorgeous. So thank you for drawing beautifully. Your first piece, though, is Light, and this is the one you won the award for, and it has a very different drawing style. It's more gritty and a little more realistic. And also, the story is more gritty. The depictions of bullying are more brutal and intense. So I'm wondering about the relationship between going from Light to going to create Boys Run the Riot.
そうですね。これ2つの違いについては、一番大きいところで、この2つの作品はやっぱり目的というかゴールが違うところがあると思っていて、で明るいに関しては、40ページぐらいの短い作品なんですけど、これはトランスジェンダーの主人公の悩みが 主人公がトランスジェンダーであるというその自分のジェンダーの悩みを乗り越えるという、ことが、一番重要な作品なので、明るいの方ではそれを乗り越えるための障壁がかなり強く設定してあるというふうになっています。で、ボーイズ・ラン・ザ・ライオットの方は、そのトランスジェンダーの物語だけではなくて10代の、少年の、が、ファッションをという表現に出会ってそれを探求していく成長の物語でもあるので、そのジェンダーの部分でそれを必要以上に、彼を陥れるような表現は、必要なかったというのがこの2つの作品の変化だと思います。
I think I can talk to perhaps the biggest difference between the two works, Light and Boys Run the Riot. I think at the high level, I can say that these two works present a different objective, or I should perhaps say a goal. Light, on one hand, is a roughly 40-page one-shot story, and I would say that the focal point of the story is for the transgender main character to get over the hurdles related to their gender. And, because of that, I think I sort of established the bar, the hurdle, the struggle pretty high, and it is pretty severe in that sense. On the other hand, though, with Boys Run the Riot, I'm not just focusing on the story for the transgender character, but this character explores the fashion as a means of expression, even though he's a boy in a high school. And this is a coming of age story in general, and because of that, I didn't necessarily feel that I needed to create such severe hurdles for this character because of that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So if people could think of any questions, we're going to open it up soon to, in just a moment, to some questions from the audience. But first, I wanted to point out the new series that you're working on here, which is Aoba no Basket. So basketball shows up in your work also in Boys Run the Riot here. Rio is also a basketball player. And here's the characters from Aoba no Basket. Now, the main character here has a very different kind of set of obstacles than Rio has, right? So I was wondering if you could talk to the creation of this book in relationship to your first series. It seems to me that some of these characters, this character is really more about a competitive spirit as opposed to this spirit of trying to found family and community. So do you see these works together in your head, or are they very different?
そうですね、これについても、物語の目的が違うところが、一番大きくあるというふうに思っていて、そうですね、ボーイズ・ラン・ザ・ライオットの、主人公であるリョウは、なんだろう、求めているものが違って、リョウは、その自分の悩みとか打ち明けられる理解者だったりとか友人を求めている。でも、こちらの青葉のバスケの、主人公である大樹は、なんだろう、同じ自分の在り方について悩みを抱えている人物なんですけど、その求めているものが、例えばそういう友人だったりとかっていうよりかはその自分の情熱を燃やせるものを求めていて、この2人はその求めているものが違うんですけど、その根底にあるそのなんだろう、自分のアイデンティティに悩んでいるという部分では通じていると思います。
Again, I think I can say that, the biggest difference is the objectives or the purposes behind these storylines. With Boys Run the Riot, the protagonist, Ryo, is looking for something different in that he's looking for someone who understands and who can be his allies for him to sort of air his struggles or, for him to talk to them about his struggles. While with Aoba no Basket, Taiju, the main character, is also struggling with his his purpose of existence or the way he should be, but rather than his pursuit for allies or friends, I think he's looking for something that he can be passionate about. So I think in that sense, those two characters are looking for something different. But at the end of the day, I do believe that they're, fundamentally both struggling with identity issues.
This last page here says, Akoshi says, be who you want to be, I believe is the translation, yes? So that seems like a good thesis statement for your work.
Eh, その通りです。
That's precisely it.
Nailed that. Okay, we're going to open it up to some questions from the audience. Thank you for your patience here. Yes. Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, yes. Yes. Hey. So just to reiterate, I will be reiterating the questions, and please no photos or videos. Respect that, thank you. And people are going around finding some questions from the audience. One thing I will say is that Gaku Sensei, you actually went and visited a basketball practice, right? Here at Ohio State. How was that? Was that cool research?
いやもちろんすごくためになって、絶対日本では見れないものを、特別に見せていただけたので、頑張って作品に還元できるようにします。
Yes, it was cool research.
Okay.
I feel like I saw something very special that I don't have necessarily get an opportunity to see in Japan. So I hope to give this back in some way through my work.
Thank you. So who's going around? Okay, all right. So this young man, this young person over here, I'm so sorry. You do it. Okay.
Hello. I'm curious on how do you write very compelling characters?
So the question is about how do you write really compelling characters?
そうですね。迫力。そう。すいません。僕の、作品に関して言うと、やっぱりその全部でやる必要はないと思うんですけど、やっぱり自分の、どこかには自分が本気で思えることとか、それが主人公が言うメッセージだとか、主人公が抱えてる悩みだとか何でもいいと思うんですけど、何かは自分自身がキャラクターに共感できる部分があるっていうことが、大事 とか、僕はいいんじゃないかなと思います。はい。
Let's see, compelling characters, you say. I don't think I can say this for all the characters in my work, but I think anything that you can think about seriously yourself, and I guess even with the protagonist, there should be some type of a central message or some kind of struggles that you yourself as a person can relate to and you can resonate with. That would definitely help, I think.
Thank you.
Hello. So earlier you mentioned about, you were like earlier kind of briefly talking about doubt in one of your questions. I was wondering if you've ever gone through it with your work, like, oh, what if I'm not good enough for this, or why am I doing this, or if it's even worth it per se. Like, have you gone through it? And I guess this can also go for you as well. But like, have you been like through it before, and how have you gotten through it?
So the question is here, have you had doubts before, and how do you get through those doubts? Thank you for the question.
そうですね。でもやっぱりそうですね。毎回もう毎日のように不安はあるんですけど、うまく書けるかなとか、締め切り間に合わなかったらどうしようかなとか、まあ寝たいなみたいなのとかいろいろもちろん当然、不安はあるんですけど、そうですね。まあ、いろんな、方法があると思うんですけど、そうですね、体験みたいなところとつなげて言うと、そうだな、まあ僕は、今バスケットボールの漫画を描いているんですけど、それは僕がバスケットボールをやっていたっていう、体験が元になって、で僕自身がバスケットボールから一番学んだことっていうのは、その目標に対しての情熱のコントロールの仕方というか、目標に対して現れる壁に対する戦い方みたいなことを一番僕の場合はバスケットボールを通じて学んだと思っていて、なのでそうですね、まあその時のこととかを思い出せばとか、そのバスケットボールが好きな気持ちも、漫画が好きな気持ちも、今はその自分がもともとバスケに向けてた情熱が漫画に向いているというだけで、そこについての戦い方みたいなものは、あまり変化していないと思っています。はい。
Yes, not a day goes by without me worrying about stuff, of course. I worry about whether I can draw well, etc., etc. So, no, to answer your question, it is not without, anxiety or worries. And I believe that there are different ways of dealing with that. But to sort of tie this into my own experience, currently I'm working on a manga about basketball, and it is fundamentally based on my own experience with basketball. And the biggest lesson that I took away from this sport is how to sort of aim my own passion towards a given goal or a target of sorts. And the way that I battle with that, I fight with that. That's what I learned the most through basketball. So I try to go back in those days and recall what I went through And that sort of brings back my love for basketball. And I also acknowledge my own love for manga right now. So in a way, I would say that I have redirected my passion for basketball to manga currently. But the way that I battle with those subtleties, those problems or worries that pop up, hasn't really changed all that much.
Is that a depressing answer, or is that or inspiring? I think maybe both. Who's next?
Our next question's
Yes.
up here.
Are there any notable mangaka or series that have had an influence on you?
The question is whether there's any notable mangaka or manga series that have had an influence.
そうですね。そうですね。一番、は、そうですね。一番幼少期から触れていた、幼少期っていうか、思春期というか、に触れていたという意味でも、それから好きな作品という意味でも、僕はスラムダンクっていう漫画が一番好きで、あとはそのスラムダンクを書いている作家さんである井上武彦先生の書いている別の作品であるリアルっていう漫画がすごく好きなんですけど、その影響は、かなり大きいと思います。はい。
Yes, I think I can say that I have been in touch with this work the most since I was little or even when I was a teenager. Slam Dunk by Inoue Takehiko. I love this work. And he's also authored a different manga called Real, and which I equally like. So I believe that I have been heavily influenced by his works.
Hi there. I wanted to ask, what was it that made you drawn to comics and why you chose that as kind of the medium to tell your stories, especially about transgender people and that sort of thing? Thank you.
So the question is why were you drawn to manga in particular, to comics, and especially in relationship to telling the stories of transgender people?
Soですね。動機。そうですね。僕自身がそのトランスジェンダーであるということは一番大きくて、でもそれはそのトランスジェンダーの人に向けたメッセージみたいなものを描きたいというよりかは、自分がその漫画家として一個個性である部分が自分が体験してきたことにあると思ったので、それを漫画にうまく落とし込むっていうことを一番の目的にして、漫画家になった当初は書いていました。
Well, let's see. I believe that the biggest factor for working on trans and other related themes in my works is the fact that I am a transgender individual myself. And rather than, focusing on, conveying a specific message to transgender individuals per se, I think as a manga artist, being transgender sort of gives me, in a way, a personality or a trait in a way, as an artist. And I think, at least when I first started, I focused on how well I would be able to tie that into and translate that into manga works.
how many volumes do you plan on releasing for Boys Run the Riot?
How many volumes are there in Boys Run the Riot? It's actually, I believe, a finished series, so yeah.
Yes, it is completed.
It's 4 volumes, yes? Yeah. Yeah.
全4巻です。
Yeah, thank you.
Correct.
Okay.
4 in total.
All right. I think maybe one more question. Yeah.
Hi, and also thank you. My question is, what has creating Boys Run the Riot, what have you learned about yourself, both as an artist and as a person?
The question is, how has creating Boys Run the Riot, how has that affected you as an artist and as a person?
そうですね、それは本当にもちろんあって、でやっぱりこのトランスジェンダーの漫画を描くにあたって、まあもちろんその自分の体験をベースにしているっていうのは、あるんですけど、それを人に届けるにあたってこう必要最低限な知識だったりとか、あとはそうですね、まあ例えば翼とかっていうキャラクターに関しては、僕自身は、彼の気持ちを 100% 知ることはできないけど、なんだろう、彼のことをちゃんと描かなきゃいけないから、やっぱりそこについてすごく、どういう言葉を言わせてあげたらいいんだろうかとか、どう接してあげたらいいのかっていうのをすごく考えながら書いたりもしていたので、そうですね、なんだろう、そういったこういろんなキャラクターの心理とかを考えることはすごく勉強になりました。
The short answer is yes. As part of the process of creating transgender-themed manga, of course, my own experience is, at the foundation of everything. But at the same time, to be able to deliver this type of art or creation to other people, I need to equip myself with a minimum level of knowledge. And to bring characters to life, for example, like Tsubasa, I cannot speak to his feelings or what he's going through 100% myself. But at the same time, I still have the responsibility of bringing this character to life in my art. So I thought a lot about what words I should have him utter, or how others should deal with him, interact with him. So that type of, character development and scene development, all those elements that I went through as part of this process really gave me a learning opportunity.
So I would like to say that on Sunday, tomorrow, October 1st, that Gaku Sensei will be signing from 1:30 to 3 p.m. at the Cartoon Crossroads at Columbus Metropolitan Library, so you can see him there. Also, there's a reception outside. Please join us. And also, just please join us in a huge thank you to Shiraki-san and Gaku Sensei. Thank you.